This is a brief introduction to gender and sexual diversity. I'm Jessy Bogacki. My pronouns are they, them. I'm part of Rainbow Collective, a local gender and sexual diversity organization in Bemidji-Wickwidon, Fort William First Nation, also known as Thunder Bay. We also serve the surrounding areas. We're going to start off today talking about the 2S LGBTQIA+ acronym. There's a few things to know about this acronym. One is that it constantly changes. Like most movements, those who are the most privileged are usually included in the movement. So this started off with just the G, men. Over time, women fought their way into the movement, followed by trans individuals, and so on and so forth. Know that this acronym varies by user. Not every individual is going to use the exact same letters in the exact same order. The definitions have changed over time to become more inclusive. If you've gone through one of these trainings in the past, you may see some definitions that are a little bit different from what you've seen before. Also know that the meaning of each term varies across individuals that identify with them. Well, the definitions that I'm giving you will give you a really good understanding of what the terms mean. Know that we're talking about people, and that definitions, labels, and identities don't perfectly describe individuals. And then remember that members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community have intersectional identities that make them part of multiple marginalized communities. Many of them are Black, Indigenous, people of color, disabled, neurodivergent, among others. We're going to start off talking about the 2S. This stands for Two-Spirit. This is an Indigenous term encompassing gender, sexuality, and spiritual identity, where someone is believed to host both a male and female spirit, bringing them closer to the Creator. This is a more recent term that encompasses a lot of identities that Indigenous folks had prior to 1990, but the term was created to help bridge the gap between Indigenous and Western understanding. The L stands for lesbian, the G stands for gay, B for bisexual, bi meaning two. So this is physical and or sexual attraction to two or more gender identities and or sexes assigned at birth. The T stands for transgender, someone who doesn't identify with their sex assigned at birth. Often the term is used as an umbrella term to include broader gender identities, but some use it as a standalone label. Transgender people have not necessarily transitioned legally, socially, and or medically, nor do they ever need to. The Q stands for two different things. One being queer. This is a person who is part of the gender and sexual diversity community. It has been reclaimed by the community over time as it was used as a derogatory term in the past, but I would still caution folks who do not belong to the gender and sexual diversity community to use this, as some still find it offensive. It also stands for questioning. There's a lot of different identities and labels. It can be, overwhelming and confusing to some. So if somebody's questioning whether they fit into the community, we accept them too. I stands for intersex. This is a person with a variation of male and female primary or secondary sex characteristics, hormones, and or chromosomes. Again, there's a lot of different variations between all intersex people, but one of the most important things to know is that there are not just two sexes assigned at birth. We don't just have male and female individuals, we also have intersex, whether they should be just a third category and lumped all together. The A stands for a few different things: agender, asexual, and aromantic. The A portion meaning lack of. So agender, lack of gender, genderless, gender-free, non-gendered, people who don't identify with having any gender identity. Asexual, lack of sexual attraction, or maybe low or absent interest in sexual activity. And then aromantic, someone who does not experience romantic attraction. And then we have the plus, because although the acronym may be long and confusing to some, there are a lot more identities within the gender and sexual diversity community, and they are just as much part of the community as all those I've just defined. We're going to move into the gender unicorn, and we're going to talk about 4 different components of the unicorn. And there's a photo that I will use reference to describe the parts that we're talking about. So first, sex assigned at birth, the classification of people based on anatomy, hormones, and a chromosome. So on the unicorn, that would be the DNA between the legs. So this is, what we assign to somebody when they're born. There's gender identity, one's internal sense of being male, female, both, neither, or another gender, based on their knowledge and experience of gender in a social context. So this is the little bubble with the rainbow. Remember, this is not what people think they are. This is what people know they are. This is how they experience the world. Gender expression, again, often confused with the others. This is how one physically presents their gender identity through the ways they act, dress, behave, and interact. This is shown by the little green dots on the outside of the purple unicorn. This is how somebody looks. We can't tell somebody's sex assigned at birth or their gender identity by how they look, although we often try to. And then attraction. This is a two hearts where somebody's heart would be. Two hearts, one for physical and sexual attraction, and then the other for emotional and romantic attraction. While we often think that these things go hand in hand, for some folks, they don't. Moving into pronouns, there are a few things to remember. So using gender neutral pronouns is best practice. So when you aren't sure what this is when you aren't sure what pronouns somebody uses. We should use gender neutral language like everyone or folks instead of ladies and gentlemen, or partner instead of husband and wife. This is shown on the slide as option 1, so use gender neutral pronouns until you know otherwise. It's best when you're speaking to a stranger that you're not going to see again, or someone you won't have a close relationship with. But oftentimes, it's important to ask people what pronouns they use and to use them. You will do this with most folks you meet. Asking for someone's pronouns comes right after you introduce your name. Hi, my name's Jesse. My pronouns are they, them. But it's also perfectly acceptable to ask what pronouns you use. And for 3, it's not exactly an option. Say thank you and correct yourself if you use the wrong pronoun. Mistakes are going to happen. If you use the wrong ones, again, say thank you. Thank the person who held you accountable and repeat the sentence with the correct pronouns and move on. And make sure you practice until it comes naturally. But how do we use them? Well, use he or she. Instead of using he or she, use they. Instead of he, him, or her, use them. Instead of his or her, use their. Instead of his or hers, use theirs. Instead of him or self or herself, use themselves. Let's put this into an example. I really like her. She is so respectful of my pronouns. I really like them. They are so respectful of my pronouns. It's like using you. We say you are, not you is. So we also have to change the linking verb and change is to are. Keep in mind that people may use different gender neutral pronouns than they, them, such as these which are called neopronouns. And others may use multiple pronouns, but it gets more complicated from here, and we don't have time for that today. While language and understanding is important, this is just one way to show allyship. There's much more you can do, so check out www.rainbowcollectivewiththunderbay.com for more information, or to inquire about a much longer version of this workshop, or email info@rainbowcollectivewiththunderbay.com. Remember not to make assumptions about who someone is, what language they use in reference to themselves, who they are attracted to, or their needs by looking at them.